Next, we're going to watch this first. The most terrifying monster we can imagine.
Fall.
I must have been 5 or 6 when, at a sleepover, a friend asked me, "What's the scariest monster you can think of?" My mind.
What's the scariest monster you can think of? I'm going to go not... You guys are saying, like, just random people or, like, zombies and shit. Satan. I think that the scariest monster would be a skinwalker that is posing at, like, Uncanny Valley shit. Something that looks like your mom, but isn't. Right? Something that looks like your dad, but isn't. Something that looks like your friend, but isn't. Or you. I think me would be less scary, though, if it looked like me. What's more scary? Something that looks like you, but isn't you? Or something that looks like somebody you know, but isn't you? Or isn't them? Yeah, like a doppelganger, but something's wrong with them. Like, it's, like, clearly you can tell that they're not them. I feel like you. No, your friend. I feel like seeing me, I don't know. Would that be more scary or less scary? No, that would be way more scary. If I turned right now and just saw, like, Uncanny Valley version of Brooke, that would be less scary than if I turned and just saw me just standing there. You know how scary that would be? And some of you guys are like, oh, Satan, oh, zombie, oh, fucking a vampire, oh, fuck. You know how fucking less scary that would be than opening your door one day and seeing you, but it's just staring at you like... You would fucking shit your pants. That would be, I genuinely think it would be like deer in headlights. You wouldn't know what to do.
Even back then, I thought of myself as the creature expert, but nothing felt big enough, mean enough, scary enough.
Yeah, that's a hard question. I don't think anybody's ever asked me what's the scariest monster you can imagine.
Another friend turned to us and whispered, "Do you know what I think it is?" There is a shadow lurking across cultures, an eternal struggle to depict ultimate evil. How can we, with our limited means of comprehension and storytelling, portray true darkness, make fear physical? What is the face of the most terrifying monster we can fathom? There are 2 fundamental problems we need to confront to determine the scariest monster: the problem of evil and the problem of fear. Both.
A big thing that makes things scary, though, is the thought that it's going to kill you. Death, I think. Not even evil. He's going to get into evil, and I think, you know, devils, Satan, all those things. It's not death, it's pain. Well, they always say that the reason Uncanny Valley things are even scary to us is because other species of humans existed that weren't us. At some point, we evolved the need to recognize, like, humanoid-esque creatures that weren't us, like Denisovans. Denisovans don't look that scary. What's like a scary-looking other type of, like, hominid? Neanderthals? Neanderthals weren't really that scary. Yeah, like, this is creepy as fuck. I don't know if this is Uncanny Valley, though, but this is scary. Like, the eyes. Like, imagine you're in your room at night and you just see this in the corner. That would, like, you would fucking shit your pants.
Abstract concepts are widely understood, but difficult to concretely visualize. Let's start with evil. Depicting a cruel action is simple enough, but imagining a physical embodiment of evil itself is deceptively challenging. For centuries, visual media has employed different methods to try and make a figure feel like darkness incarnate, from early tricks of light and shadow to modern
I mean, like, what's the scariest looking monster that you've seen in a movie or a film? I feel like Momo is really scary. Because it's simple, but it's really fucking creepy. Just because it looks human, right? Babadook, This is creepy. Like, if that was real, I don't know. I think the scariest things are things that kind of look human. When it's a monster and it's like a lizard rat, like, this isn't this is scary, but it's not as scary because it's like, what the fuck is this?
VFX. The most common shorthand is to simply copy the appearance of the guy. You know the one.
Satan. And why do they depict Satan like that?
Imps and demons, but the great Satan himself is
With horns?
red and scaly with a bifurcated tail. He carries a hay fork.
But if all it took to make a convincing epitome of evil was a red cape and pointy horns, Halloween would be a lot scarier. Just because a narrative tells you what you're looking at is the Lord of all malice doesn't necessarily mean you believe it. Creating a figure that viscerally personifies evil is not just a question of visuals, but characterization. After all, cruelty is not an aesthetic so much as a behavior. One of the most important landmarks in portraying wickedness on screen comes—
I'm like actively trying to imagine the scariest thing I can while I'm also simultaneously watching this and trying to talk to you guys. This is like the first time I'm triple tasking. I'm like sitting in my brain trying to picture like what's the scariest thing I could think of. I know I'll hit it when I'm sifting through things that look scary in my brain, and I know I know it'll be the scariest thing when I just get goosebumps. Yeah, the Smile monster. Oh my god. Really though. From the movie Smile, cuz it's also like people you know. Yeah, the Smile monster. Just something that's like really like it enjoys, like, it's scary, something that's malicious, but something that's malicious and angry is less scary than something that's malicious and happy.
See, it's difficult to empirically measure evil beyond subjective feelings.
No eyes, I think makes things the scariest. Because they always say looking at somebody's eyes is seeing inside of them and seeing their soul. And so if something has really creepy eyes, you really don't even need to do anything else to make it creepy. If their eyes and their mouth are scary, if this bit of their face is scary, nothing else matters.
Most philosophies recognize two major categories of unkindness: moral evil, which is the result of intentional actions, and natural evil, which is the result of impersonal phenomena. And notably, most people find the former to be more evil than the latter, regardless of scale. Norman Bates from Psycho can't level a city like Godzilla, but he nonetheless feels crueler because of the conscious thought behind his misdeeds. Whether this is objectively true could be the subject of boundless philosophical debate, but for the purpose of this video, let's just roll with it and define evil.
Well, it's intent versus random chance. A tsunami occurring is evil, but it's just an occurrence that has no motivator, comparable to a person that just wants to kill people.
So now we, seemingly, have the formula for determining the ultimate monster. Find the entity that's done the worst things for the meanest reasons, and we've got the winner, right? Well, not so fast, because we've forgotten the second half of our quandary, the question of— and just because something is more unethical doesn't inherently mean we'll be more frightened of it. Consider the two dark gods from Adventure Time, Hudson Abadir and the Lich. Hudson rules over a plane of eternal agony, a sadistic layer cake of nightmares seemingly designed to torment an infinite amount of people for an infinite amount of time. It is Hades and Hell and like the DMV all rolled into one.
Okay, bozos, make room, make room, make room.
And considering that Hudson has set the realm up this way because he thinks it's funny, from a philosophical standpoint, he's just about the peak of moral evil. In contrast, the Lich's plan to extinguish all life is cold and dispassionate. Obviously not a nice thing to do, but his motivations are likened to that of an unfeeling machine.
That's scarier. That's scarier. 100%. Something that wants to eternally torture everything versus something that wants to get rid of all life ever is a more terrifying creature to me. It's soulless, right? There's a motivation behind somebody that wants to have people feel pain, right? There's some level of humanity in them that is twisted and corrupt, versus somebody that just wants to see the world burn is like another level of, oh my God, something's wrong. Like you're missing something. It's not something that's twisted. You're just lacking a level of humanity.
The Lich is far scarier.
There is only darkness for you, and only death for your people.
Fear is more than an equation.
I think it's also nothingness being innately scarier than something. In human life, people are more afraid of not existing than living badly.
Hudson's domain of fiery suffering might be less principled than the Lich's icy oblivion, but it isn't as frightening. That we might find a frigid, calculating—
Wow, this guy is spitting fucking facts right now. I feel like I have a goddamn musical serenade just pumping into my fucking brain right now. This is the best video I've seen in a while.
evil more menacing than a firestorm of cruelty is not a recent psychological phenomenon. In Dante's Inferno, a 14th century narrative poem, the very heart of hell is cold, a vast frozen realm robbed of passion and light, its agony slow.
Bro, this is why I also think The Thing, I hope he talks about The Thing. I'm a big The Thing dick rider, okay? I'm a King Glazer of the movie The Thing. It's my favorite film. I think the reason The Thing is so scary is because it removes the capacity to have trust in anyone. And humans are innately social creatures. And the idea of The Thing, for the people that don't know, is it's basically an alien that kills you, turns into you, and then it has all of your memories and acts like you, and gains your trust just to do the same thing to you and kind of spread itself out. And so once The Thing's introduced into your realm, you can't believe anyone's real or anyone's telling the truth. It's like living in the Truman Show, but every actor wants to kill you.
You see this idea echoed in the book series A Song of Ice and Fire, where the most terrifying threat to the realm aren't the fires of human conflict, but the icy machinations of the enigmatic others, beings whose rotting fingers are steadily creeping across the world's throat. In the adaptation Game of Thrones, the others are ruled by a demonic Night King, a figure who, after 8 seasons of ominous buildup and compounding mysteries, was revealed to be a stupid and uncalculating bad guy. Some would argue this was a terrible decision, by which I mean me. I'm arguing it was terrible, but before—
Well, yeah, but that's also just because of big American audiences don't like when the villain wins. And sometimes, yeah, it is annoying that like cold calculated villains that are so smart and have wiped the entire universe like Thanos end up failing. You have all of the power and all of the knowledge in the entire world, and yet you lose. It's not possible. In a realistic, if Thanos and the Avengers and Marvel was real life, Thanos would win with no resistance. It would be utter annihilation. He would do whatever he wanted, and he would basically be God. He would become God.
monstrous evil envisioned not as a raging brute but a subtle intellect has, to me, always been the more disturbing interpretation. The Witcher series pushes this concept to the extreme with Gaunter O'Dim, a nightmarish figure who, despite possessing near infinite power, at first seems unassuming and even forgettable in this world of titanic dragons and giants. O'Dim is an egoless and patient malice, content to make the world his plaything through the smallest contracts and adjustments. He may very well be the devil of this realm. After all, Old Pointyhorns is often shown working through manipulative deals and temptations. The strange man of the game Red Dead Redemption operates under similar principles. He's a seemingly all-knowing taker of souls who nonetheless—
Yeah, and I think that the biggest fear is the realization that he's been there the whole time and you've just entirely forgot about him.
Unlike the Night King, these entities retain their unknowable gravitas, never lifting the veil upon their true nature.
What are you?
Do you really wish to know?
Yes.
No, Geralt. You don't.
Despite only ever revealing a small glimpse of their power, both figures feel hopelessly beyond the scope of the player's influence.
I never played Red Dead 1. Is this guy like a human or just like actually like the devil or something? He's meant to be death.
Plain, halted, nor understood.
Oh, nobody knows.
Yes.
So it's like left up.
And you have.
That the most menacing monster may well be a secretive, subtle figure might seem counterintuitive. Surely the greater the scale of an on-screen horror, the greater the impact. Yet as I've discussed in past videos, beyond a certain threshold of destruction, it is increasingly difficult to take devastation seriously. A villain blowing up the universe is generally less—
Yeah, it's scary, but I don't know. I think a big giant that's the size of a planet that's just going through wiping everybody out is less scary than something that's human size and still has the same power as the big guy, but you don't know it until, like, it's too late.
Because our minds can much more easily quantify the latter. Out of every villain in the Avatar series,
Like, who's the Dormammu from Doctor Strange is not as scary as Black Widow.
whenever a threat is so massive it's difficult to mentally encompass, it ironically makes the stakes seem smaller. Villainy on a cosmic scale, perhaps unsurprisingly, struggles to be intimately scary. So perhaps the most terrifying monster would be a hushed whisper of cruelty, an evil so understated that it sinks into your bones before you feel the first discomfort. Such a nightmare stalks the bleak landscapes of the Polish film Diabel, a man cloaked in black known simply as the Stranger, who urges the lead character to indulge in his darkest impulses. What makes this depiction of evil unforgettable is how the Stranger seems almost feeble throughout most of the narrative, showing fear and weakness like any mortal human would. Despite the fact that he reveals his true cold malice in the first scene, despite the fact that the film's title literally translates to the devil, the Stranger is such an unassuming and delicate instrument of darkness, you find yourself second-guessing your first instinct to his true identity. But with a hypothetical as extreme as the scariest monster, one understandably might want a portrayal that is both subtle and almighty, equal parts personal.
I don't know. I think a big thing in this is maybe this scene is making me think about it. If a lot of you guys have seen AOT, and the Titans in AOT are less scary. Attack on Titan, for the people that don't know, it's slang. The monsters in AOT are scarier when they're mindless. Mindless, kind of evil-driven monsters are scarier than something with motivation, right? Something that's thinking is something that's less scary to me. But then it's lacking evil. It's just innately an evil creature.
The horrors of familial dysfunction are an effective method for grounding a larger terror in more intimate dread. In many respects, all the gruesome deities in the realms of Elden Ring are the product of a broken family unit, each pantheon member wronged by at least one other in some sickening manner, and made all the more terrifying for it. Elden Ring features such a malicious cosmology that it's at first difficult to identify.
Well, the whole premise of Souls games is also just grim. Like, everybody's just stuck in an everlasting, effectively torture, and you're the main character trying to end that.
Which figure is the zenith of cruelty. Promising candidates including the god-devouring Serpent of Blasphemy, Moog the Lord of Blood, the Loathsome Dung Eater, and other insanely named fellows. But it is the Shadow of the Erdtree DLC that offers the most obvious candidate for a demonic frontrunner, in the borderline Luciferian Mesmer the Impaler, a violent god-child whose name is unfortunately quite apt. Mesmer seems this world's Prince of Darkness, complete with an unsubtle serpent motif, and yet he too is ultimately a victim of divine parental mistreatment. But classical mythologies have long held that there are forces more frightening than any manifestation of evil. In Greek mythology, the ultimate monster is arguably Typhon, the father of all foul creatures, and yet his story ends with him taken by the frigid hands of the underworld, trapped beyond the veil for all eternity.
It's also different what people perceive as scary, right? Objectively, everybody kind of has very cumulative characteristics of what are scary in general. Like basically all humans are afraid of the dark. Not like you being alone in the dark in your room, but if you threw, I would say, every human in the world alone in the woods at night, 99% of people would feel scared, right? But outside of that, people have their individualistic experiences that make things more scary. Some men could probably relate to having fear of, a bad father, right? Or for women the same, or anybody. What you deem as scary might be different from me or you or somebody else. So,
in a universe where he succeeds in annihilating all living things, the Lich is left broken and despondent, almost frightened by the meaninglessness of the oblivion that awaits us all.
I strove to be your vassal on the physical plane, to extinguish all life.
bruh, I never watched all of Adventure Time. This shit is crazy deep comparable to what I thought it was.
And in my universe, this I achieved. But it gave me no satisfaction.
Every monster discussed so far could be considered an agent of the same force. They are all bringers of death, dispensers of endings, but they aren't death itself. Death, with a capital D, shall we say, is a concept that's been personified numerous ways across cultures, sometimes as merely a messenger or middleman, but there's another way of imagining death that's more chilling than perhaps any conventional ultimate monstrosity.
Vem är du?
Jag är döden.
Kommer du för att hämta mig?
Jag har redan länge gått vid din sida.
Ingmar Bergman's 1957 masterpiece The Seventh Seal tells the story of a knight who returns home from the Crusades to find his home overwhelmed with the bubonic plague, and at the crossroads of war and illness, death itself waits for him. Seeking to delay his fate, the knight challenges death to a chess match, all the while begging the figure to answer questions about the nature of life, evil, and bereavement. Yet death offers no comfort, its uncaring void swallowing all cries for meaning screamed into the dark. Death in the Seventh Seal does not even seem—
Well, death is also just fucking... Death is the scariest thing that anybody will ever experience, because it's the one thing that you can have absolutely no input or you have no input in the making of what's going to happen. Somebody said death is an eternal nightmare. You have no say. You have no... It's not like, oh, your parents are making a decision and you're not allowed to talk about it or anything, because you could still sit there and change the outcome. You are going to die. We are all going to die, and coming to terms with having literally no thing that you can do or say or achieve to change that is fucking shitty. It's sad, right? Somebody said spoilers. That's the best comment today. That's the best comment today. I appreciate you as a chatter. You are a great chatter. I'm happy to have you in my stream. Versus spoilers.
Perhaps it's unsurprising that death has been imagined as the ultimate villain. After all, fear of death is likely the most fundamental fear we possess. Our abject horror towards
fear of death, and fear of death is one of the motivations that keeps people going. And just on a humanistic, animalistic perspective, your goal in life is to survive long enough to reproduce. And so everything that will prevent that is something that is an enemy of yourself. So that's why monsters in themselves can be scary, but nothing can be scarier than death itself. Wow. 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 Okay. Wow. You're more scared of dying than death itself? I'm scared of growing old and losing the ability to function at a level that I am now. And I think that's written a lot about in Stoic philosophy and Marcus Aurelius, where it's kind of it's actually a thing that the people that created Stoicism killed themselves when they got too old. And it's a thing within Stoicism that when you recognize your body or your mind are going, you take yourself before it gets too late, because you lose yourself. I think at some point you physically die, and I think at some point you mentally die. And one of the best examples is people with Alzheimer's. When your brain starts deteriorating and you're still alive, the you that existed is gone. And something that comforts me, at least, is that the me that exists right now will be dead before I die. Because tomorrow, the me that exists right now will be dead. I will be an entirely different person. Only a very fractional percentage of me will have to confront death. And Marcus Aurelius talks about this, and a lot of other philosophers talk about The fact that when you die, you only lose the present. The only part of you that is losing anything is the part of you that exists in that exact moment. Because every other part of you is either already gone or hasn't existed yet, which is comforting, but it's also just like, okay, yeah, but still death sucks.
In fact, while death in Puss in Boots at least somewhat follows a code of honor, death in the Seventh Seal is eager to cheat if it means winning the grand game against the living. It is the monster at the end of all things. It has no reason to play fair. But death need not be an active villain to chill you to the bone. In Alan Hawley's brilliant animated
And that's what makes it even scarier, because death isn't a villain, it's just there. It's something that exists, and it's not, there's no hatred behind it.
short film Coda, death is a quiet, gentle figure that appears after a man's sudden passing. Unlike most personifications,
I feel like most personifications of the Grim Reaper, it might be like a cloaked man with a scythe and they're kind of a scary figure, but they themselves and their personality is never usually scary because it's something where it's like, hey, there's no motivation behind this. I don't have to do like this. I have to do this, right? This is something that everybody has to go to. It's a level of fairness that exists within the world. And I think it's something that keeps people equal because at the end of the day, no one is better than anybody else because we will all die.
Whether death comes in gentle or with tremendous force, it is the great unifying certainty, the end credits for all who walk the earth. What monster could hold a candle to such perfect darkness? The difficulty with making assertions about the most terrifying...
Wow, dude. I always just think about I say this all the fucking time. I always just think about like the last minutes of my life and whether or not I'll even know that it's the last minutes of my life and what I'll experience. Will my life flash before my eyes? What will the last waking moments be? Will it feel like a dream or will I consciously in my own brain tell myself, wow, I'm actually about to die? And I wonder whenever I think about this, if in that moment I'll flash back now. I will forget this in a year. And I wonder if when that occurs, if that will come back to me. I have a lot of people in my life, not going in very specific, but that will likely die soon. And it's very sad. But hearing stories from them, they say they're beginning to dream about things that they haven't thought of in decades, in places they haven't been to in forever. And it's not even a conscious thought of them actively trying to search it. It's just popping up in their brain. Why? I don't know. I think as you die, you begin to reach back to things subconsciously that you haven't thought of in forever. Like if you live to the age of 75, you in your last moments of your life might begin thinking about things in your 20s that you haven't thought of in 30 years.
I personally find a cosmic void to be scarier than anything that might slither out of it, but someone else may very reasonably find a more physical embodiment of evil to be the pinnacle of monstrosity. In many ways, defining ultimate evil is a question of whether or not a corporeal nightmare haunts you more than a dreamless abyss. And it's a question I don't think has a universal answer. Fear is a slippery, evolving thing, so surely true darkness would have many facets. Surely the most terrifying monster could wear multiple faces.
Skinwalker. I said at the start of this.
Reflecting on the apex of terror is a somewhat masochistic exercise, but I think there's a primal value in entertaining such monstrous extremes. Since our earliest days of sitting around a fire, we've told tales of what stalks in the night, familiarizing ourselves with the grimmest possible hypotheticals. Every generation has reflected on the hyperbole of the ultimate monster, and perhaps that's as it should be. For when one pushes the boundaries of comfortability, the shadows of the world can ironically seem a little less ominous. I didn't have an answer to my friend's question all those years ago, and when my other friend whispered, "Do you know what I think it is?" I wasn't certain what he would say. But even back then, my mind went to images of demons and death, those familiar monsters that have been with us since the beginning. My friend smiled and said, "Actually, the scariest monster is your butt." Ricky, if you're watching this, I think you're the worst. So,
I thought I was about to be hit with some fucking factual knowledge type shit.
if you're anything like me, you've tried more than once to create your own ultimate monster. World Anvil.
Oh my god. That's the end? Oh my god, I thought he was going to give me the answer to life. Curious Archive, you couldn't do this to me. You can't. All right. W fucking stream, chat. We only got through like 5 videos, but we also did that sour candy review, so it was a fucking W stream altogether. I had a fun-ass time streaming. Hope you guys had a fun-ass time.